Major League Baseball is going to be the tale of the day today, but we are going to talk a little bit of football. First things first, Teddy, it's hot in Atlanta. Those bats are hot down there, and also a long home stretch by the Atlanta Braves really benefiting them, now sitting 3 games above the idle Philadelphia Phillies yesterday. If we take a look yesterday, Teddy, 12-3. On Sunday, 15 runs on Father's Day. Who's going to stop or cool off these bats, Teddy, down in Atlanta?
Oh, that's just the tip of the iceberg, 12 and 15. Before that, 5, 9, 6, 8, 7, 13, 7. That's 82 runs in their last 9 games. All overs. If you've been riding these over trains, we talk about how overs beget overs and unders beget unders. You have a hot lineup that is hot and is staying hot. Last night, an outburst in the 7th against the Mets bullpen. Atlanta looks very dangerous right now, and you've been betting the Braves and the over. You've done very well for yourself and your bankroll over the course of the last week and a half.
Yeah, Teddy, they'll get a nice little test tonight, though, because you're going to get DeGrom on the mound for the New York Mets. But again, it is a hitting environment. Those bats are hot. They still stack up well against DeGrom. Tehran's been no slouch lately, so we'll see if that over trend continues here on Tuesday night for baseball. But I'll tell you, a welcome sight for those Angels. Their bat's getting a little bit hot as well. Justin Upton comes back. What's he do, Teddy? As all these players seem to do in their first at-bat of the season, he goes yard. And how about this? Ed, you can't hide for so long, Teddy. Edwin Jackson has an opener in front of him. Ooh, maybe if the opener comes in, can give us 1 or 2 innings. Edwin Jackson give us 3 or 4. How about Edwin Jackson, Teddy, giving us 2/3 of an inning and 7 earned runs?
Yeah, Twitter finally noticed that Edwin Jackson was back in the majors last night. They went nuts. Obviously, we're talking about a pitcher who has no business starting games at the major league level anymore. Last night he didn't start. There was an opener. He came in the 2nd, and as you mentioned, didn't make it through the 2nd. He's allowed 6 runs or more in 5 of his last 6 starts. That's not good. He's allowed 41 runs, including 12 homers in just 25.1 innings over 7 outings this season. Batting average against .390. If you see Edwin Jackson on the hill again this season for Toronto in any way, shape, or form, you might want to think about betting against him.
Hey, Teddy, real quick question on this, because we see the Tampa Bay introduced us to the opener there. We know when Stanek's going to be on the mound or another few openers that they have. It's kind of interesting here because it looks like it's just starting this year. And you saw it yesterday. Law was announced as an opener shortly before the game started. Now, when I say shortly, it's not a half hour, 45 minutes. But a lot of times you'll see in the morning, oh, look, Edwin Jackson is the starter. A lot of people are placing their wagers, Teddy, because you see it on social media. And all of a sudden they say, wait a second, you come home and check your ticket. Well, Law was announced as the opener there, which voids out your ticket. It's kind of an interesting phenomenon here that we're seeing in the betting world.
Yeah, and again, I had an opportunity to talk with one of the major sportsbook directors in Las Vegas last week, talking about this very issue, and he's like, we're trying to put action instead of listing starters. That being said, you can do that with a simple click. You know, all you need to do, if you want to make your wager and have it survive through a pitching change, just click action, and it will do so. However, when you list pitchers and the pitchers change, it immediately becomes no action. So be aware, you can make the wager as action, but when there's no starter announced, as there was for a while in the Toronto game yesterday, they don't even have a number up on these games. So they're trying to make changes in the marketplace to reflect the new opener mentality, but these changes will take time. In the meantime, if you want to get involved, make sure you're not listing those starters.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of people, Teddy, make that bet maybe at their lunchtime at work and come home like, oh, man, look at that easy victory, and check their bank account, check their sports betting site and see that the game was actually voided out. Just something to keep in mind. Always looking to save people out there money, Teddy. It's what we do here on That Betting Show. Let's take a look and talk a little bit of football. It is June 18, 2019. We only have a few teams left before we get over to college football, but this is a good team we're going to preview today on That Betting Show. It's the Los Angeles Chargers preview. 15-1 to win the Super Bowl in 2019-20, 7-1 to win the AFC. The Chargers team total 9.5 minus 121. Tough division out there. Last year, Teddy, what more could you do? Obviously, you wanted to win a Super Bowl, but 12 wins to 4 losses, 4-2 overall in the AFC West. Same thing we're going to look at this year again. You're going to have some home field discrepancies for the Chargers, which really doesn't help them as much as other teams do. But also, you have Phillip Rivers back for another year. How's that arm going to hold up? You have a plethora of running backs here. I like the starter. I like the third down back. You have wide receivers. You have a solid offensive line. You have a great defensive coordinator and a great defense. Teddy, can they get over the hump this year for the Chargers? I like what they're bringing to the table this year, but do they have enough to get it done?
That's a good question. And of course, as you mentioned, they won 12 games last year. And then their reward for 12 games, for 12 wins is back-to-back road games to open the playoffs at Baltimore, which they won, and then at New England the following week. So when you don't win the division title and you go on the road in the postseason, and that's what happens for a team like the LA Chargers, winning the division, obviously paramount for them. From a statistical standpoint last year, they were elite, plus 0.9 yards per snap between what they gained on offense and what they allowed on defense. That's tied for number one in the NFL with Kansas City. They outrushed their opponents by 0.4 yards per rush. Phillip Rivers, a 105.5 QB rating, opposing QBs under 90. Huge differential there. And it wasn't all turnovers. They were only +1 in turnovers last year. It wasn't all schedule either. Their schedule slightly easier than average last year, but it's also slightly easier than average this year. Statistically, we're talking about very little, slightly easier, but it's basically an average schedule last year and one this year. So this is an organization that has a plan, which we haven't always been able to say for the Chargers. There's continuity here. The GM, Tom Telesco, I should say, hired in 2013. Anthony Lynn's been there since 2017. Ken Wisenhunt's been there. Gus Bradley's been there. Phillip Rivers has been there. The pieces are in place. And you look at what this team's done in the draft. Look at their last 4 first-rounders. Melvin Gordon, Joey Bosa, Mike Williams, Derwin James, all of whom have become very, very good NFL players. They've drafted well, and that's why this team is where they are. We talk about the offseason moves. The biggest deal was revamping their linebacking core. They made a big free agent splash, bringing in Thomas Davis, 14-year vet. Not sure how much he has left in the tank. They re-signed Denzel Perryman, and they had a couple of draft choices at the linebacker position. The draft was largely defense. Jerry Tillery, defensive tackle out of Notre Dame with the first-round pick. Adderley, the cornerback out of Delaware. He's an interesting choice round number 2. He may well be pressed into action early, and they're hoping that Trey Pipkins, the third-rounder out of Sioux Falls, is going to be able to help that offensive line right away. Worth noting for season win bettors, Chargers, who have one of the smaller home field edges in the NFL, they don't get a whole lot of crowd support, and their opponents do get a whole lot of crowd support from all the people that live in LA from around the country, and they took one home game, sent it to Mexico. So they only have 7 home games this year. Instead of their home revenge against Kansas City, they get, a game in Mexico City in November. So that cost them a home game and could be an issue when it comes to extra travel and all that type of thing for a Chargers team that does have an aging QB, although they did sign Tyrod Taylor to be his backup in 2019.